everyone. My name is Dana Gelsomino, and this is episode 12 of the Ask a Question Show, the show in which you ask a question about any type of narcissistic or otherwise toxic or abusive relationship or situation. And I, along with the rest of the audience here, will do our very best to help answer it for you. Our goal is to give you the feedback and the support that you need so that you can move forward in getting the clarity, the closure, and the healing that you so deserve. And so tonight's question comes from Lauren. Lauren asks, Dear Dana, I would love for you to post a video about dealing with narcissistic parents. My mother-in-law is a textbook narcissist. She's extremely manipulative with her children, and she lashes out and seeks to harm anyone who doesn't fall in line. She manipulates through illnesses and demands attention, time, money, and service in every form from her children. She's been lashing out at my husband lately, who has had the nerve to defend our adult daughter from her behavior. My husband has been terribly hurt by his mother, who has been particularly cruel towards him. How do I help him cope with or deal with his mother's narcissistic personality? Okay, fantastic question. So, I guess there's a couple things here. How do you help him cope with or deal with a narcissistic parent? Okay, again, a couple things. There's this idea that a lot of people have that, that they have to put up with anything from their parent, and that's not true. An abusive person is an abusive person is an abusive person. They come in all different shapes and sizes and genders and ages and different roles in our life. They can be a parent or a child or a spouse or a boyfriend or a girlfriend or a neighbor or a member of your church or, a coworker, you name it. But abuse is abuse is abuse. And so he doesn't owe her a relationship if she's abusive towards him. So that just kind of, for the record, he's not obligated to have a relationship with an incredibly abusive, toxic, destructive person just because she gave birth to him. He doesn't owe her that. So there's that. So how do you help him cope or deal with that? Well, it depends on kind of what he's wanting to do. It doesn't really sound like he's terribly motivated for whatever reason to, cut ties with her. So if this is kind of the dance that his family's done for decades and he just, is going to continue doing it, then all you can do is just listen and just be there for him and empathize with him and just say, I'm really sorry. She's a terrible witch of a woman. And, I feel your pain. I am so sorry that your mom is like this. And you're right. It's not fair and it's not right that she treats you like this, but this is who she is. And so kind of with that being said, I'm a big fan of dealing with what is. And one of the biggest kind of tools that victims have in dealing with abusive people is the tool of anticipation. So he's known her long enough. He knows what kind of behaviors she has. So if okay, you know what? She always hits us up for money and she always pitches a fit on Thanksgiving, but we still, want to have her over for holidays. Then, if there's certain behavior that you can expect from her, then what you can kind of do is first of all, don't be surprised when it comes up. There's no point in getting upset. Like, this is what she does. She uses and abuses people, right? So I would kind of tell yourself, quit being surprised by it because this is the kind of person she is. And to not take it personally, this is just her. There's something wrong with her. So I think that kind of helps too when you kind of can quit being surprised by bad behavior, but then again, to anticipate it. So if she pitches a fit every single Thanksgiving and Thanksgiving's always at your house, I would say next year, either, have her come over much later or have Thanksgiving at a restaurant or have Thanksgiving at somebody else's house. So you can kind of regain control over the situation. And once she starts to get belligerent and abusive and ugly, then you can up and leave. So kind of limiting the amount of contact and the level of damage and destruction that she can do. You guys can also sit down as a husband and wife team and kind of say, you know what, I think let's figure out some kind of boundaries for her. And so then that way, and this isn't, of course, the most assertive approach, but it can be helpful. And it's kind of like a first step in in drawing boundaries with really overbearing, pushy, toxic, abusive people like this is to kind of say, as a husband and wife, let's get clear on some rules, like maybe no more lending money to friends and family. So that way, when she hits you up for money, you can say, well, you know what? We have now decided we just can't afford to do this, and we're no longer lending money to friends and family. Or if she decides that she wants to come stay at your house for 3 weeks, that you guys have a new rule about company and that, no longer than 3 days. You know what I mean? Like, you guys kind of have your own rules as a husband and wife. You guys back each other up because he's going to need it, because when you have a really domineering, abusive parent like this, they're really used to getting their own way, and they're going to just steamroll over anybody's attempt, especially their child's attempt at preventing them from getting their own way. And of course, setting boundaries with abusive people goes over as well as a lead balloon, because they don't like that, and they're abusive people. So they don't tolerate boundaries well, because they have this sense of entitlement that they should be able to get whatever they want, whenever they want, with whoever they want, as much as they want, and everybody else just needs to deal with that. So realize, if you guys do get to the place where you decide to set some boundaries with her, that she will continue to push them. She will not respect them. She hopefully might respect consequences. So if she does start to verbally abuse you guys, and you decide, you know what, we're no longer going to put up with this, that, again, trying to put yourself in a situation where you keep your power and control, you don't give it away. So putting yourself in situations where you can hang up the phone on her if she starts cussing you out, or you can up and leave, or you're at a restaurant where she can make an ass out of herself and with her bad behavior, and you guys can up and leave. These kinds of things, can be really helpful. But again, when you start setting boundaries with abusive people, especially when you're kind of in this like super dysfunctional family dynamic where you've got, it sounds like her husband is got his own issues, probably a lot of the other siblings have their own issues. This has been the dance they've been doing for a long time, to just go in there and decide, well, I'm going to be healthy, and here's my healthy boundaries. It does not go over well generally with anybody involved, because that's the dance. And so then it's even kind of more crazy making, because, then come Thanksgiving, if she's always pitching a fit, and if you decide, you know what, we're done, we're going to get up and leave, then there's a really solid chance that everybody's going to look at you like you're nuts. Like, well, no, you see, this is the dance we do. It's Thanksgiving. Mom pitches a fit. She throws the turkey in the trash. And then, we all get upset, but then we all kind of get over it. And then we end up playing cards and having pumpkin pie. And that's the dance that we do. So to realize, if you're going to do something different, it tends to not really go over well with a lot of people. And to be okay with you having, you have the right to have peace in your life, and to have, balanced, healthy people in your life. And sometimes cutting ties with toxic people, or drawing boundaries with toxic people, might mean having to cut ties with several people that are going to back up and justify their toxic behavior, because it's just always been that way. That's how their dynamic is going to stay. So there's lots of different things for you to think about. By and large, I would just let your husband know that you love him and you support him no matter what he decides to do. If he wants to really limit contact with his mom, that you back him up with that. If he wants to cut contact with her, you back him up with that. But that it breaks your heart to see him like this, and to kind of open up that conversation and see kind of what that leads to. I will be curious. Please keep us posted. I will be really curious to see what you have to say, how things go, and as well as what other members of the audience have to say who have actually had to deal with this and who have gone through having a really manipulative, abusive parent. So please, questions, comments, everything, please put those down below in the comments. If you have any questions for the Ask a Question show, or any other, questions, comments, concerns, frustrations, ideas, insights, you want some support, you need some help, you just want to say hi, please let me know. Again, contact info is down in the description area. And as always, lots of love to you guys. You are not alone in this, and you are so not crazy, and you really can move forward and heal from these people. You really can. And, having healthy boundaries and standards is a really good start to that. So take care of yourself. I will talk to you soon. Bye.